the National Retail Federation's big show is probably the premier event in the country, or maybe even the world, that talks about how technology is going to affect the retail sector. Now, some of you may say, "Oh, I'm a pro yard. I really don't worry about this." But the fact is that if you have a cash register somewhere in your store, you're in retail. And it's definitely true if you're in hardware or you are a home center. So we're going to be talking about that today. Uh, Let me go on. Uh, we're along with Doug Donaldson. We're also very happy to have some commentary that we recorded at the show from Jeff Young, who is the Vice President of Retail and Pro Services at Epicor. Uh, Epicor is the sponsor of this webinar, so we definitely thank them for having made this happen. The show had more than 40,000 attendees. They came from 100 countries. It was practically a United Nations event in New York. 6,200 brands were represented. There were hundreds of exhibitors. Naturally, you got to see all sorts of crazy, things going on there. But I also was fascinated that this particular show had probably the highest number of coffee machines among the exhibitors of any trade show I have ever been to in my life. There probably were a good 50 different places to get cups of coffee somewhere along the way. I had a great flat white from one of them. I don't know, Doug, if you took advantage of that, but
Yeah, I had a latte, and definitely the smell of coffee was in the air.
yeah,
They
it was
were
at the
all over the
Javits
place.
Center in New York City, and so it was a lot of fun. Um, we have these key findings that we're going to be going through. We're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, electronic shelf labels, inventory tracking cameras, how the systems fit in with your ERP, people tracking cameras, RFID. We're going to talk about the weather. We're even going to talk about uh, weight loss drugs, because that does have a factor in terms of your future success. Uh, we're going to start by talking about AI, because there was something on the order of 150 different exhibitors who all had .ai in their names or were promoting AI solutions. Google put up this slide talking about some of the things that you can get out of it. And Jeff Young from Epicor had some thoughts too when he was at the show. So let's hear from him first.
AI is not a threat. It can be a complementary assistant, quote unquote, if you will, to be able to help the day in and day out retailer at a small individual store or at an enterprise level be able to operate their business and satisfy their customers. And I think it's two things. One, I think it can be overwhelming, right? Because there's so much advanced technology and forward thinking. Different words like generative AI in a retail space is probably not something that somebody thinks about every day. And then if you soak it in and really understand it, the competitive advantage to using it versus somebody not using it is significant. So yes, 100%. Everything that we think about as it relates to how we're going to evolve our software was validated through the last day and a half.
So the good news is that your ERP systems are thinking about AI. Certainly your distributors and your manufacturers are thinking about AI. But even though that was the one of the biggest themes, probably just the overwhelming theme of the trade show, we're not going to talk as much about AI today because, Doug, I think that one of the things that I got out of it is that AI is a big company issue. If you run a hardware store or somewhere smaller, frankly, your great employees are probably the biggest thing there. What was your impression about when you came back and heard all that stuff about AI?
Everything was AI driven, AI powered, so there was a lot of it thrown around, and I really think it's coming to the same point in development to the digital age when there was the point where people were saying, "Oh, this is digital now. We're doing it digital." So I really think AI is almost becoming an expectation, and I think retailers need to ask themselves, well, this is great that it's an app or a device is AI powered, but what does it really do and what's the benefit? And I think there are some things that that can benefit the individual stores. I think one of the things we can look at is the chat bots, the plugins to the social media or websites, and they're becoming more sophisticated and can be a better reflection of your store and provide that initial customer contact. Um, and I think they can be tailored to where they reflect what your store is about.
Yeah. I think a big thing that came out of it for me is that AI improves the margins. It just makes things just a little bit faster, a little bit easier to use, cuts a minute of your time here, cuts an hour of your employees' work somewhere else. It's not a game changer which is going to revolutionize the industry. It's not going from horses to automobiles or something like that. But if you're a 5% net profit business and this helps you get to 6% net profit, that's a 20% gain in your profit. And it sort of is that way. I was fascinated. One major technology company that I went to visit, one of those, that go by three big initials. I was talking to them about the fact that I was there to learn about hardware stores and pro dealers and how it would affect things. And he said, hardware stores. I absolutely love hardware stores. The reason why is because of the people there. It's because you go in, you got a problem with a thingamajig, and they know what the thingamajig is, and they can solve your problem. In other words, it's the people as much as anything else. That said, I'm sorry, there's a little noise going on in the background, but the uh, the gains, I think, are incremental and they are serious, but they will take time. And I think we'll just let the big people figure out some of them first, and then we'll go from there. The thing that interested me as much as anything was electronic shelf labels, which there must have been 5 or 6 different major companies that were bringing them in from various countries around the world. Uh, if you're used to shelf labels from places like Best Buy and Kohl's, those are pretty tired and old and black and white. The stuff that's available now is much more interactive. It's much more colorful. It comes in different sizes. The animation that was available that you could use for, panels and the like was great. They were coming in smaller styles and smaller sizes. You could connect them to eyeglasses and just tiny little tags. It was really, really cool stuff that we were seeing. And the way they were putting things together was fascinating. Like you put this little tag inside a shoe, and as you pick up the shoe, the advertisement the changes to something that tells you a little bit about the product. And in fact, if you pick up 2 shoes and shake them, you can get a side-by-side comparison. Um, there were several implications that I saw out of this. And while some of you may be thinking that, oh, this is still, way down the line, it's actually coming a little faster than you think. I was just earlier this year at Hingham Lumber in Cohasset, Massachusetts. They're putting these in. This is an example of what they've done. And you can see all the information you can put on that label. This is a simple black and white label, but they've got the product codes. The QOH stands for quantity on hand, QOO, quantity on order. So you can answer customers' questions immediately. You get an idea of what the product is. There's a little light in the corner where if somebody was looking for a product, you could light it up and they could find that product easily. All sorts of little different things. Hingham thinks that they're going to pay for themselves in about 18 months. Uh, it's a lot faster than it used to be, and I was really intrigued and thinking that this is going to be a coming thing. Now, Doug, you're closer to the hardware world. What's your feeling about this?
I do think we're going to see the electronic shelf tags a lot more. I think the benefits are fairly obvious. You can easily change prices. You can also have staff more easily stock the shelves, especially on items like drill bits that are all similar, because the tag can just light up and the employee knows where to put the tag. Um, but it is something that's still fairly pricey. For a store, uh, to with a lot of SKUs that to do the whole store, it could run into the hundreds of thousands. I did drop by one booth where their take on it was retailers start getting into it by doing end caps. And as part of that, they have displays, which could also be vendor paid ads on the displays. So the a particular end cap that I looked at, they said it could be set up for about $4,000 and about a $20 a month software fee, and it had a main display over the top and then displays in front of each shelf level.
Yeah,
And
and I think that vendor involvement is probably one of the things that's going to be intriguing. When you have a world in which, let's say, a manufacturer, if you can imagine instead of Nike selling running shoes, if you could imagine a tool manufacturer creating a small video or a large video to promote their product. Uh, it very well could be that the content and things like that are going to be provided by the manufacturer, and in fact, also the graphics that would be provided by the manufacturer, the content creation. So this is a thing that's developing, more on other retail sides, and I could see more expensive products, the manufacturers perhaps spending money to do point of sale advertising right there.
And on the particular end cap that I was looking at, the manufacturer said that it sells 30% better than those without it. So
Right. Yeah. By the way,
good for
lest I forget, folks, I can't read my chat box as this is working right now. But if you have questions, please use the question box to either make comments or to send us questions as we go along, and we will try to answer them as we get them. We want to make sure that this all works for you. I'm going to switch now to product tracking software. Uh, Probably one of the biggest things that's also being done along with these electronic shelf labels are to have cameras of some sort on the shelves, looking at shelves and identifying what's available and what's not available, what's been what a stock out is. This company called Vusion is showing this tiny little camera, and it looks across and it gives you a report regularly on what's available and what's not available. It also, in fact, tells you when you're out of stock and at what times of the day and the hour of the day that you're out of stock, so that if you're losing revenue because you just don't have that product there, this notifies you fairly quickly. Once again, it's making money at the margins as opposed to huge gains. But if it brings you 3 or 4% more revenue, that's just extra money that helps you in great ways. If you're not don't want cameras, there also were robots there going along. I know that Busy Beaver in the hardware the chain home center chain around Pittsburgh uses them. I'm told McCoy's Building Supply down in Texas uses them. So that's another possibility. Another one we saw actually goes on the top rail, and when you look at it, it every 20 minutes or so, I think it goes by and takes a reading of what's available, and then pushes out a report that tells you how you're doing against the planogram, whether the prices on the shelves are correct, whether there are products missing, and you can see these little pink areas down in the right-hand lower picture, where there are errors, things like that. Once again, it's just a way to help you get a few extra points, get a few extra dollars, and get things to work. And all of this figures in, once again, into the supply chain and how the supply chain operates and how you can just improve your basic ideas about the supply chain. Jeff Young had a few thoughts about that too.
As it relates to retailer, we think about the store and the customer experience, but if you don't have the right product at the right place at the right time, then it's moot, it's irrelevant. So we need to look broadly across the entire supply chain and be able to identify pockets. Where am I getting my goods? Where are they? Where's that custom order? When's it going to be delivered? And by the way, can I reroute it and make it delivered directly to my customer because it's late, as opposed to them having to come into the store to pick it up? So all of it's related. It's not just in the four walls of a retail store or an enterprise. It's the entire supply chain that needs to be evaluated.
Now, let me give you an example of those sort of marginal improvements. I was talking to one company that deals with a major hardware store distributor. And let's say that hardware store distributor has a fill rate of 95%. And it's because of troubles getting products, finding products, getting them into the right place that they can't get above 95%. Well, with the use of some of the software that was being made available, they were able to get their fill rate up 1 percentage point to 96% without having to buy extra goods to fill up their warehouses. So they were able to serve their customer better without increasing their costs. And I think that's sort of an example of those tiny little gains that technology seems to be providing these days. In terms of this kind of tracking software, Doug, when you were looking around at it, what did you think?
One of the things that I thought could be most appealing to retailers was the notion of reducing the manual labor and improving in-store efficiency. I think that some of this technology can integrate into the workforce systems and optimize shelf management. So I really do think that's something that's going to be really appealing to retailers is saving on manpower.
Yeah. We're interested in the views of people in the audience. You can use the question and answer box to give us your comments or ask questions. So please go along. Now, in talking about shelves, you also need to talk about security sometimes and fighting crime, dealing with things. I was real impressed by this particular product from InView. Uh, in order to keep people from just grabbing an entire rack or row full of stuff, they've got this device that if you want one of them, you push the button and it gives you one of them. But then you can't get more of them. You've got to wait for it to retract so that you can get the next one to work. And so it's a nice way if you've got really valuable products to limit what's going on. There's a pretty strong screw in there to hold it in. The same company also had a device that was used to handle security when you have expensive products. That particular electronic tag or device that the man is using is tied to a particular individual at the store. So you not only know what's being used, but also who's opening up the products. I'm told also that the company has improved the quality of those wires that are going along. Now, security also involves watching over people, and there was an amazing amount of software there that would identify you or as an individual as you were walking around and through a booth. And the interesting thing is that if you agreed to be recognized, it would actually recognize who you are. Allison Vista in this case. I'm MO69. I'm the fuzzed out guy in this particular picture. But the ability to do recognition software was very impressive to me. I don't know to you, Doug, but it also to me wasn't just a security thing. It also, I don't know if people were talking to you about its ability to collect information about your customers' movements through the store in a good way.
Right. So you can understand the foot traffic flow and plan your store, create, end caps in certain areas where where folks are going that maybe you weren't expecting. And also time of day. It's important to know that so you can work staffing decisions.
Yeah, the phrase dwell time I heard again and again and again, and part of it had to do with the notion that they're getting software that can figure out when you're just looking around, and sometimes when you're looking around a little too long, it could be that, for example, you're in a particular area and you can't find the product, or you're looking at the product and you don't quite understand. And if there was just a little bit of a nudge, you could get that extra sale. Or there's too many people in one aisle at one time at the particular time of day. Maybe that means you need to reorganize your store a little bit so the flow works a little better.
Yeah,
All
or
of these
maybe
things are,
examine signage. Yeah.
yeah, you might have better signage and the like. Yeah, all of those different things are coming along. Um, yes, can it also theoretically, well, one thing that they said is they could probably also use software to see that if you were looking at, let's say, a power tool in the power tool section, and then later you come and you're at there's a picture of you at the counter buying the power tool, it can make those connections as well, and see how many people were looking at power tools and then how many people showed up at the counter. Um, so we're we're there. One person has asked regarding people tracking. Are these codes representing gender and age range? No, I think the M and the F is probably male and female. Yeah, you're right. You are right. I had not thought about that, but the one that says 60 to 69, they were actually kind to me. I'm 70 now. Yeah, I'm 70 now. But other people, yeah, they're actually breaking down the age. So yeah, Lee, that was a very good observation. I hadn't thought about that. Um, One thing that was kind of a little scary to me was that some of the companies that were coming to this with really, really high quality tracking software were from Israel. And I think I can understand why, because security over there is a huge thing. So knowing who's coming in and out of the stores and knowing who's in general spotting people in a crowd is a big thing over there. And now they're taking it and hopefully using it for more more kinder and friendlier purposes. I want to talk a little bit about the revival of RFID technology. Many of you may remember it from years gone by, and you thought it went by, it went away. But now it's getting cheaper and easier to use. And this particular guy is using an RFID tag to go over a whole collection of croissants and baked goods. And just by casting his machine over that, he's getting this really, really strong report about what's available. Uh, is there, when can this be used? How can this be used? Well, apparently, one RFID manufacturer told me that Home Depot has been looking at this, and they said one of the issues they were having was that you can't really have these RFID tags go up right next to metal. But if you can have metal on a box, you can have metal on other things. And in fact, one of the principal ways you're seeing this being used is in fashion because it's cloth. So you can have metal in that case. But imagine, for example, having RFID tags on all your garden supplies. And with those garden supplies, you could run a drone over all of the pots and with RFID get a count of everything you have and what kind of a plant you have and whether you need more. So there are, I think, times you can do this. You also could tag your lumber because it's not metal. Uh, Lots of different things you could do with RFID that I think it's getting cheaper to use. I don't see them doing it with croissants when the tag is 5 cents a tag. It would raise the price of the croissant too much, but I could see it with some of the things we sell. Um, Doug, any thoughts? Did you see any RFID or did you have any views about it?
I saw some of it. I could see some potential for it. Perhaps it could even be a security thing with some of the more expensive, smaller type items that you find in a store.
Yeah, that does make sense. Once again, if you have questions, please ask them. I do know that you were intrigued at some software that uses the weather for forecasts.
Yeah, I stopped by the uh, Planalytics booth and talked to them, and the way that they utilize weather analytics helps determine shift in consumer demand. And actually, they are already working with Ace, and Ace is using their software to help determine some of their distribution models. So I think it's possible maybe that similar type technology could filter down to individual retailers, and they could have a better grasp of what the weather is like. You know, when I talk to retailers about how their business is, that's usually one of the first things they say. Well, we had a wet spring, so weren't as busy. So I think knowing the weather and being proactive about it is something that this kind of software could do.
Yeah. One group of people who were using Planalytics talked about how weather could figure into what they refer to as the explainability of their sales numbers.
Yep,
When their boss said, "Why
absolutely.
are things good? Why are things bad?" You actually could
Yeah,
say, "Hey, the weather was a factor." Now, sometimes if you go back over a long enough period of time with your weather and your sales, uh, you can then say, well, you claimed it was a wet spring, but actually over the last 5 years, we've had an average amount of rain. So was it really a wet spring, or did you guys just not sell as well as you could have?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that factors in too. And it goes that way. One other thing that's important, though, is that, um, and I noticed that this was happening during the run up in lumber prices. Historically, a lot of lumber yards, when they were measuring how well they were doing it basically in dollar terms. How many more dollars am I getting in this year? How many more sales am I getting in compared with the previous year? Um, Once lumber prices went crazy, they realized they also had to start measuring things in terms of units. How many bunks of lumber, or how many of this, how many of that. And as a result, they're starting to do that. Well, with Planalytics, they don't worry about price when they compare weather in a previous year. They're comparing unit sales. So if you're going to do this, you have to actually be able to count your units, and that's important. Once again, anybody have questions? Let's talk. Um, there were some smart grocery carts that were being offered. I know that if you have a home center, for example, you may be interested in seeing what's new from Brazil or from Germany or from Israel. Some of them weigh the product, some of them take pictures of the product along the way, but they also have sales opportunities. Some of them just do RFID scans. There are various things, but the notion is that if you can, if you can take self checkout to another level and actually do it while the person is buying the products, you've got some opportunities to do things that you might not have been able to do before. Uh, I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. I haven't seen that many shopping carts in hardware stores myself, but I have seen a lot of them that do buy online, pick up in store. And there was at least one company that I saw was doing some interesting technology to either use clips or other products to look and see how can we speed up the process for people picking up their products. And this is something that I think is a developing technology. Uh, just a few things toward the end I wanted to bring up uh, from various news conferences and the like that I attended. One of them, strangely enough, involves the fact that for a lot of consultants that I heard, one of the biggest trends that's happening isn't just artificial intelligence, it's weight loss drugs. And in cities where they've got a significant number of people using weight loss drugs, they said that there has been several impacts from it. One is that people were shopping more and they were buying smaller sizes and they were more likely to turn in the XLs and the double XLs to thrift stores. They also were feeling better about themselves, and that was, generally producing good things. So if you're selling Carhartt, if you're selling Dickies or something like that, it would be interesting to see if you're in an area with a high use of weight loss drugs, whether you're selling more of those smaller sizes. It might affect your planning for future years. I don't know about you, Doug, but I've been to a lot of hardware and other stores that sell clothes, t-shirts and the
Oh, yeah.
like. So,
Oh, definitely. It's a trend to keep an eye on.
yeah. Second one is involves Generation Z. And that is that the generation that followed the millennials, the people who basically were born in this millennium, were actually much more interested in shopping in physical locations than their previous generations. There's a rise in actual visiting physical stores. And one of the beliefs is that as Gen Z was coming of age, we started having COVID and there was a shutdown and they couldn't see each other. So they want to go out. We do have a question. Aside from theft reduction, one of our writers writes, I see most of the innovation is sales related, less so with employees. Um, so that's something to think about there. Doug, you also told me, I did not visit this booth, but you visited Schneider Electric and you picked up a few ideas from there.
Yeah, they're a company that works with businesses to help manage building systems and energy management, um, and also reduce energy costs. And what surprised me is that they claimed a 2.5 to 3 year return on investment for installing their systems. So I think sustainability and energy savings should still very much be in the minds of retailers.
That's good. That's important. Um, we're getting toward the end. If you do have questions, please use the question box right now, and we'll try to get to them. But just to summarize, I would say these are the headlines. We're both reporters, Doug, so that's our job is to come up with the headlines and say what the lead is. Um, One, AI is the strong coming thing, but it's something that's at the margins and really is more for the bigger players to worry about. I think that if you are a small hardware store, if you're a small building material dealer, the onus really is on your ERP provider and on your distributor or your buying partner to probably take advantage of these things. It's also the onus is on your manufacturers to be taking advantage of these people who are much bigger than you, and you're going to see the impact of these, but it's not necessarily going to be money you're going to shell out. However, the idea of trying to improve bit by bit is very, very important. To that end, where do you spend your money? I do see electronic shelf labels paying for themselves faster than ever. Yes, it will take time. I forgot to say earlier, Doug, I believe you said you discovered too that some of these shelf label companies are having discussions with distributors so that maybe they can get them at a bulk rate. The hardware stores can get them at a bulk rate. Um,
I'm not sure to what extent that's going on, but I think there's just some discussions out there.
yeah, negotiations are underway from what I've heard. It's funny, the shelf label people don't want to admit that it's happening, I think, because they want to sell them at full price. But I think they realize they've got to sell them at a discount through these distributors if they want to get in. Um, Inventory, saving time, saving people, all those sorts of benefits are going along. Uh, People using the same cameras you use for security, software is now making it possible to teach you far more things with those cameras than you did before. And I think it's just worth looking into. In certain cases, RFID may be the way to go. And so take a look at that, especially if you have gardening or you're largely a stick yard. I think those two places are going to be significant where RFID can work. The weather is something that you just don't complain about. You now can actually take advantage of. I think we've got that going on too. And as we said, Ozempic and Gen Z, there are also other great trends. I think that this was definitely time well spent by me, Doug, to go to this event in New York. I would love to see more dealers, especially distributors and ERP companies, go to it.
Yeah, definitely just seeing the innovation, seeing what's out there. They have a special section of companies that have just brought on new things within the past year, and I think that was really illuminating. So yeah, there's new things out there. There was also a 3D like signage that was really getting close to what we saw in the last Blade Runner movie with the holograms. So we're taking steps.
There we go. Hey, I want to thank you, Doug, for taking part in this.
Thanks for
I
having me.
think I really appreciate your insights. I want to thank Epicor for sponsoring this. All of you who watch this will get a copy of the slides, at least in PDF, and then I can follow up with the videos and the like. It's a little hard to send huge videos over a file, but we'll figure out some way to get them to you. But that is it. And thank you so much. We are going to finish this right now, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.